Hey guys, Dave here from Guitar Zero to Hero, and in this video I'm going to be showing you 3 different methods to recording your electric guitar. Now this is great if you want to get started recording your own music or creating your own covers. Now the method that you choose will really just depend on your budget as well as the gear that might already be available to you. Now regardless of the method that you choose, you'll be able to get a great studio quality sound. Now there's of course many other methods of doing it with different pieces of gear, but in my opinion, these give the best results and are the methods that I personally use myself. Now let's start with method number 1, and this method makes use of a piece of equipment that many of you already have or will need if you're going to be playing the electric guitar, which is an electric guitar amp. Now these days, most modern day practice amps and solid state amps from brands like Boss, Line 6, Fender, or Positive Grid have inbuilt USB connectivity. So you'll be able to plug your amp straight into your computer and it will be recognized as an audio device. From there, all you need to do is record your electric guitar with your preferred digital audio workstation of choice. Now in this example, I'll be using Logic Pro. If you're using a Mac, then GarageBand is great as well and is completely free. If you're using a PC, then you can use a free digital audio workstation like Pro Tools First or Ableton Lite. Now a tip that I have for this method is to check to see if your amp is able to record the dry signal as well as the processed signal. If you're able to, then you should be able to record both signals at the same time, and this will give you the flexibility to use amp modeling software on the raw signal in case you don't like the original tone that you recorded. Now this is super handy and I'll speak a little more about this in method number 2. But anyway, let me give you a sound demo from the Boss Katana 50 Mark II that you see down here, plugged straight into my computer using USB. Now the Boss Katana 50 Mark II is a great amp. I love it because it can be a practice amp. It can also be loud enough to play with a band or live, but also you can use it to record your electric guitar. So what are the pros and cons to this particular method? Now the pros are that you are using a piece of gear that you pretty much already need if you're going to be playing the electric guitar, which is an amplifier. So you get an amp that you can play live, but an amp that also has the ability to record the dry and processed signal. At least I know the Boss Katana range can do that. The other positive is that there's not a lot of fiddling around or equipment needed. You just need the amp and a USB cable, so it's really simple. And the final positive is that it can be as quiet or as loud as you want it to be. Because you're using the amp as the audio device, you can basically just turn the volume completely down and monitor the sound using headphones. So it's great if you want a quiet studio setup. Now, in terms of the negatives, you can't actually record any other instruments with this particular setup. So you can't record vocals or any percussion or anything like that. The other downside, and although it's very hard to tell, is that you are getting a digital sound. And most people, I would say 99% of people these days wouldn't be able to actually recognize the difference between the two, especially not anyone who's a casual listener. But if you're a sound purist, then perhaps you want to get the sound of a real guitar tube amp. Now let's get to method number 2, and this method is a super flexible method for recording the electric guitar. But basically all you'll need is a recording interface, an audio interface. Probably the most popular audio interface going around is the Focusrite Scarlett. Now this particular one is the 2i2, which has 2 inputs and is USB-C powered. Note that when you record your guitar signal through an interface like this, it's not going to sound like anything special as you're just recording the dry signal. Where the real magic will happen though is when you process this signal through an amp simulator plugin. Now, if you're running a Mac, then GarageBand and Logic come built in with their own amp simulator plugins, which sound pretty good and have some decent tones. If you're willing to spend a little extra though, my pick for the best amp simulator is the Positive Grid Bias Effects 2 plugin. Now, the range of amps and effects and tones that you can get out of that plugin is incredible. It does cost a little bit of money, but it's a super capable plugin and you'll be able to get almost any electric guitar tone you want out of it. Now, if you are running a PC and you want some free options, then you can check out a video by Simple Green Tech, and he shows several free VST options, and I'll leave a link to that in the description below. They definitely will be more limited and they won't sound as good as the full version of Bias Effects 2, but the sounds that you get out of those free VSTs should be good enough for you if you're just dipping your toes into recording for the first time. So here you'll see the dry recorded guitar signal coming from the Focusrite Scarlett. Now, if you listen to it, it won't be anything special. It'll sound really tinny, really thin, and really flat. Where the magic really happens though is where we can utilize VST amp simulators. So I'll pull up Bias Effects 2 and I'll turn this on, and you can see the range of effects and amps that it's simulating here. And there's just so many possibilities with this particular plugin. And now you'll get this sound. So that's pretty damn awesome. Now, Bias Effects 2 is a paid plugin. Now, if you're using a Mac, there's already pre-built-in plugins. So if you're using Logic or GarageBand, then you can just go over here and you can go to electric guitar and bass, and there's an inbuilt amp simulator that has presets, which is really great. So let's just pick one here. So you can get some pretty wild sounds. Which is awesome. Now, before in method number 1, I mentioned that it was a good idea to record the clean or dry signal in conjunction with the amplified signal. And that's because you can then take that dry signal and process it using an amp simulator plugin, and then have that flexibility to change the sound of your guitar after it's already been recorded. Here's an example. So this is the processed signal from the Katana. Now, this is coming straight from the amp. So once that's recorded, I can't change it at all, but I recorded it at the same time with the dry signal that sounds like this. So it sounds like nothing. But let's say I wasn't 100% happy with the original process tone that I got. I could use this dry signal and I could put some amp simulation on it. So I could go and put the Bias Effects 2 on it, and then suddenly I could just sculpt the sound any way I want. Let's just try something crazy. So as you can see, you can adjust the sound any way you like after it's been recorded, which is really cool, just by getting that dry signal. Let's put some distortion on it to see how that sounds. Probably not the best sound for that particular riff, but you get the idea. So using an amp simulator, you really can have so much fun and have so much flexibility in tweaking the sound. So you got so many amps here to choose from, low gain amps to choose from, all based upon real world amps. And you can throw in effects in there, you can turn them on, turn them off. You can add, look at all these pedals that you can add. So the possibilities really are endless after you've recorded a clean dry signal. If you've recorded the process signal, then you are kind of stuck a little bit with what you have. So what you hear is what you get, but that's probably a quicker way of laying things down. So what are the pros and cons here for this particular setup? Now, the pros are that you get a wide flexibility of adjusting your tone without having to re-record everything again and again. So you can record your guitar part once with a tone that's somewhat suitable, and then you can really fine tune it later down the line when you're mixing your song for the final bounce. The other pro to this particular setup is that you can use this interface to record other instruments as well. So you can record other instruments like acoustic guitars and vocals if you have a microphone in conjunction with an audio interface like the Focusrite Scarlett. And the other positive is, again, that you can be as quiet as you want with this Focusrite Scarlett. You're only recording a dry electric guitar signal and everything else is being processed by the computer. So you can just do this all with your headphones, and it's a really quiet setup. Now, the downsides to this is that you are getting a digital processed sound. I will say again though, that almost 99% of people will not be able to tell once mixed into a song, the difference between a processed signal or something that's actually been mic'd. But if you are a guitar purist, then this method might not be for you, but it's a really versatile method in my opinion. When you have an audio interface like the Focusrite Scarlett, you can expand your setup by buying a mic and then being able to record vocals and acoustic guitar as well, and even percussion. Now let's get to our third method, which is the way that most sound engineers and producers have been recording electric guitar for the last 50 or so years. And that's by using a microphone on a real guitar amp. And this way you're getting the real sound of an actual guitar amp being played live as opposed to a digital signal that's being processed. Now for this setup, you'll need an audio interface, something like a Focusrite Scarlett, and you'll also need a microphone. Now in this demonstration, I'm using a Rode NTR ribbon microphone. This is an awesome mic for recording electric guitar amps, but there are heaps of more affordable options like the Shure SM57, which is a staple in pretty much every professional recording studio. Now just be sure to know whether your mic is a condenser mic or a dynamic mic. Now condenser mics will need phantom power supplied to them, and you can provide that on your audio interface by pushing the plus 48 volt button. Whereas with dynamic mics, you won't need any of that phantom power for them to record that signal. Now there's probably a million different techniques for micing an amplifier, and this is where you can have a lot of fun by being creative and testing different placements to get different sounds. But one of the most common placements is by pointing the mic at the edge of your amp's speaker cone. You can then play with the distance from the mic to the amp to get different sounds. That's just a really basic mic placement suggestion, but of course there's many other different methods. So let's run through the pros and cons of this particular setup. Now, the pros are that you get a real live authentic tone. And this might be better for players who are really used to playing live with their amp and feeling that sound at the same time. Some players actually get into the groove a lot better by having that sound behind them and what they actually use live. The other positive is that you can experiment with the mic and different positioning of the mic in order to get different sounds. So you can get a lot of great sounds using this method, and stuff that really just can't be replicated exactly the same using amp modeling software. I guess that could be a positive and a negative. Now in terms of negatives for this particular setup, once you've recorded your guitar using the mic, you can't change that sound unless you record the clean signal at the same time. Now that will require a little more extra gear, so I won't get into that. But when you record using the mic, what you get, you're pretty much stuck with. Now you can EQ that recorded sound to slightly shape it, but if you've set a particular tone, then that's more or less what you're gonna get in the final result. So there's not a lot of flexibility for this particular method. There is also a lot of trial and error in this particular method to get the right sound that you want for your particular recording. So mic placement's a big issue as well, so you'll need to fiddle around with that. So this particular method requires the most trial and error, but it can also produce some of the best results. The final downside is if you're using a tube amp, for example, like this Vox AC30, to get the best results, you really need to crank the amp and have it super loud in order to get that best tone. So if you're looking for a bedroom setup that's not going to annoy other people, then this definitely isn't the setup for you, because a lot of the time you will need to crank your amp loud to get that good sound. So there you go, guys. That's my summary of the 3 different ways in which you can record your electric guitar to get a professional sound. Now, if you have any questions about these methods, then please do let me know in the comments below. If you're looking to record acoustic guitar, then I also have a video on 4 different methods that you can record your acoustic guitar. I'll leave a link to that in the description below. Thanks so much, guys, and I'll see you guys next time on Guitar Zero to Hero. Cheers.